What's up, guys? Welcome to the MMA Minute, the mini show. Today, I want to be talking about Brandon Moreno saving the day at UFC Edmonton. I want to talk about Erin Blanchfield potentially being a fraud, and I'll explain what that means in just a little bit. I also wanted to touch base on Max Holloway, who is now moving up to 155 full-time. That is a permanent move. We'll talk about his championship potential in that weight class. And then the last topic, pretty big fight news. We have Garry taking on Joaquin Buckley. Give you my reactions and quick predictions on that. So, UFC Edmonton, man. This is just another card where you could probably say this was an underwhelming fight night. And it did have a live crowd. We did go to Canada. And it just had a ton of decisions. We had majority decisions. We also had a 5-round co-main event that was pretty boring, pretty uneventful. And then kind of the story of the night is we had another set of several split decisions that were really just riddled with either just straight up bad scorecards or potential robberies. So you had the Sergey City fight taking on Garrett Armfield. Armfield had, 4 or 5 takedowns in that fight. He had 5 minutes of control time. He actually outlanded City. City even came out after the fight and just admitted that he thought the decision was wrong. He thought that he lost. So that was a pretty blatant robbery there. Even opening the whole card, we had Jamie Lynn Horth taking on Petrovic. That was another close split decision. Really could have went either way, but there was a 30-27 thrown in there for Horth, which really makes no sense. So this is just another, consistent inconsistency that we're seeing, right? It's just time after time. We're fresh off of just a week ago we had UFC Abu Dhabi, and there was a ton of split decisions and robberies on that. We just had straight up bad scorecards. We had Rinat Fakhretdinov getting a 30-27. We had Oralby getting round 3 on a judge's scorecards. It just seems like there is blatant cheating going on in the sport right now that is really just killing the sport, killing reputations, killing fighter careers. It's a problem. We're continuing to see it. UFC Edmonton was really no different, but I will say the saving grace of this card was Brandon Moreno. This dude is an absolute dog. That was a clear fuck you, I'm still here type of fight. That was a massive statement. He beat the shit out of Albazi for 5 straight rounds. Maybe at the very least you could have given Albazi round 1, but outside of that, it was Brandon Moreno all day. 50-45 on my scorecard and pretty much on the majority of scorecards. I know one guy did throw in a 49-46 officially, but that seemed like a perfect shutout. We just saw a doubling of significant strikes landed for Brandon Moreno. We had the takedown defense holding up. Albazi was only 1 of 4, which was kind of wild that he didn't shoot for more takedown attempts because that's where he was going to win the fight. But really, he tried early on. It didn't work out. The get-up game was on point for Brandon Moreno for the only takedown that was secured by Albazi. He was able to get up pretty much right away. And then from that point on, the fight stayed on the feet, and Brandon Moreno just dominated him with the jab, with the boxing combinations. I mean, he was destroying Albazi. His face was getting all banged up in that fight. That was Brandon Moreno all day. So we had a bad card overall. And again, I just mentioned we had a bad co-main event that went 5 rounds. That was very uneventful. Brandon Moreno, even for a one-sided victory, 50-45, it was still a fun fight to watch because you just got reminded how good Brandon Moreno is. So super happy for him to actually go out there, get a massive W. It's probably one of the best performances he's ever had in his entire career. And now really the question is not if he's going to get a title shot. It's more so when he's going to get a title shot. So big win there for Moreno. Kind of a tough look for Albazi, who was really a dark horse in the division, a potential future champ of the division. And now I think people are probably going to start selling that stock. So that was one point that I definitely wanted to bring up, was just Brandon Moreno being the hero, definitely standing out on a lackluster card. And then that brings me to my second point, the co-main event. Erin Blanchfield does get the victory over Rose Namajunas, but it is very close. I was kind of surprised that it wasn't a split decision. It was a unanimous 48-47 for Erin. The more I kind of look back on it, I do think that probably makes sense. I thought in the moment, Rose probably did enough in that swing round, which was round 4, but kind of looking back at it, I think Erin winning the fight does make sense, but it's just I'm calling her a fraud because we're calling her something that she isn't. I think it's in relation to her expectations, and people are calling her a future champion of the division, saying that it is undoubtable, it is going to happen at some point. I just don't see it every time she fights. I mean, she is getting some decent wins on her resume. Obviously, Rose is going to look good on her resume, but that was a very close fight. She was getting pretty much dominated in those first 2 rounds, and I just was waiting for the takedowns to happen. They weren't for a while, so she is a slow starter. She was able to get the takedowns later on in the fight, but even when she's getting the takedowns, we're seeing very limited ground and pounds. I don't think she had any submission attempts. So it feels like, yes, she's beating a certain level of competition, maybe making a big name for herself because she got 3 submission wins in a row with the big stamp going over Jessica Andrade, where she subbed her in round 2. And I think people just from that point on said she's going to be a future champ. And I know she is super young, so she could get better. The striking still isn't where it should be. The ground and pound can be something that is worked on. The submissions can probably be worked on a little bit more, at least threatening them instead of just going down there and just laying and praying and just racking up control time. So maybe there is still time for her to do those things, but the Talia Santos fight I look back on, that was super close. The Manon Fiorot fight, she got destroyed 50-45 very easily by someone who's probably going to be a champion. I'll give her that. But again, the fraud comes in because people are calling her a potential future champion, and not even potential. They're just saying she is going to be the champion at some point. I just don't see it. I do think she has a pretty nasty grinding style. She's got good cardio and good wrestling where she's going to beat 90% of the division. But I just think when she's taking on people like Manon Fiorot, maybe eventually like Valentina Shevchenko, Alexa Grasso, I think she loses to those big names. I don't know if she's ever going to become champion. Maybe because all 3 of those names will move on at some point in the next few years, and the level of competition is pretty thin in this division. That's where she's going to stand out. But, I don't think she's going to go down as one of the greatest female fighters of all time. I don't think she's going to be held in high regard as someone like Valentina Grasso eventually. Manon Fiorot, I think, will even be a better champion when she probably wins her fight. So it's just Erin Blanchfield. I don't see it personally. She keeps winning fights. She keeps proving me wrong, but I just don't see it. I know fraudulent is probably going to piss a lot of people off, but it's just that she is not that level of expectation that people are putting on her, in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I know that's going to be a controversial take, but I just don't see it. It's a win over Rose. Rose is one of the greatest female fighters of all time, but she's up a weight class. She is out of her prime. Suffers from fight IQ all the time as well, and she really just gave those 3 rounds away. So that was a tough look because Rose was looking very good, but Erin Blanchfield, I don't see it. I don't see it. So next topic that we had that's really just big news. I mean, Max Holloway had one of the greatest 145 runs that we've ever seen. He's going to go down in the history books as a top 3 or top 4 greatest featherweight of all time. No one's going to dispute that, but I think it makes sense. He gets knocked out by Ilia Topuria. He just admitted that the weight cuts, he can make 145 decently. It's just that the weight cuts are taking a toll on him. He's getting a little bit older in his career, so now he's moving up to 155, and I think we got to talk about the championship potential for this guy because he does have 2 fights at 155. The first time around was against Dustin Poirier back in 2019. I think that was for the interim belt. And he actually outlanded Dustin in that fight 181 to 178. It was a very close fight. The difference maker was that the power was on the side of Dustin Poirier. And I think that swung the decision in Dustin's favor. But that was just kind of a flash in the pan moment for Max Holloway at 155. I don't think he had any real desire to go up to that weight class and take it seriously. But when he did it the second time around against Justin Gaethje for the BMF belt, again, a 5-round fight, he destroyed Justin Gaethje, who is considered one of the best strikers at that weight class, who people have been saying he has the biggest power in that weight class as well. And Max Holloway was able to go in there and almost outland him by 100 significant strikes. And of course, he ended up putting a stamp on that victory with one of the greatest knockouts we've probably ever seen. on one of the biggest stages we've ever seen at UFC 300. So if we're getting Max Holloway taking it very seriously, moving up to 155, putting on muscle and weight the correct way, I mean, I'm not going to say he has championship potential because I don't think he's going to beat a guy like Islam Makhachev, and even the guy underneath him, Arman Tsarukyan. He's probably going to be your future champion, probably rattle off a few title defenses as well after Islam. I don't think he beats a guy like Arman, but when you look after that, Charles Oliveira, I think that is a very realistic fight that could take place. I think he could beat him. Justin Gaethje is ranked number 3. He already has a win over him. Dustin Poirier, that's going to be a fun fight if that ever happens. Dustin probably has one more fight left in the bag. It very well could be against a guy like Max Holloway. I think he could win that fight as well. And then Max is already sitting at that number 5 ranking. So it very well could be a possibility that he goes in here, gets a big win over someone like Dustin, maybe over someone like Charles Oliveira, and then does get a title shot. So he is going to be a championship contender. But I just don't see him beating a guy like Arman Tsarukyan, who just has a dominant grappling game to go along with good striking. And same thing with Islam Makhachev. I mean, he's just an all-time great fighter in general. He's not going to lose to a guy like Max Holloway, in my opinion. But I do think Max can go in there, get another big win in this weight class, challenge for the title, probably lose that, and then just kind of be a prize fighter at 155 for the rest of his career. So I like the move for Max Holloway. I think it makes a ton of sense. I think he's going to be highly competitive, and I'm very much looking forward to some of that matchmaking because it's going to be all-time great. So that's going to bring me to my last topic here. Machado Garry announced he will be fighting Joaquin Buckley. I believe they are main eventing UFC Tampa. I think it's the last card of the year, December 14th. And listen, it's a good fight. I kind of feel like it's a step backward for a guy like Garry, who's coming off a massive win over MVP. But you could also say the same thing for Joaquin Buckley, who's coming off of a massive win, a massive knockout, a round 3 knockout win over Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Feels like it's a step back for Garry, and really what I think it is that it's just it's a log jam at 170. You have Bilal Muhammad, who is the current champion. He's out of his fight with Shavkat, who definitely should be fighting for a belt ASAP. The next people below him, you're going to see like Kamaru Usman kind of still in the mix there. Jack Della's on the way up. Sean Brady's on the way up. I mean, this is a very busy 170-pound division, and it just feels like they're saying, you know what, screw it. We're just going to put these two guys together who are both riding very nice win streaks, and the winner is going to get a future title shot probably pretty soon, and the loser is just going to have to take a back seat. So it is definitely a fun fight. If I had to make a prediction, I think you got to go with Garry here. Just look at Joaquin Buckley against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I think he actually struggled in that fight. We actually saw one of the judges' scorecards giving it to Thompson for the first 2 rounds. So Buckley kind of got lucky. He got the round 3 knockout because he may very well have lost a decision to a 40-year-old Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And Garry, not as good of a striker as Wonderboy, obviously, but he is a very technical guy on the feet. He's been able to mix in the wrestling and the grappling. I think his cardio checks out. I think the durability checks out. I just think he's really going to be a problem for Joaquin Buckley, but that's not to say that you can just, throw Joaquin Buckley out the door and say he's not going to win this fight, because he is explosive. He has massive fight-ending power that really can win him any fight. I think his drop down to 170 has been a fantastic move. I think the weight cuts probably kill him a little bit, but he seems to be doing it okay. But in general, when you got a guy like that who just throws haymakers and just blasts double leg takedowns, I don't think the cardio really holds up over 5 rounds. So that's just really another advantage that Garry would have. So slight lean to Garry, but it's really hard to bet against Joaquin Buckley, especially when he's hitting his stride and just winning multiple fights in a row at a new weight class that looks really good for him. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. It's definitely a fun fight. It is main eventing, I think, the last card of the year. And those are all the trending topics that I wanted to hit. Let me know what you guys think below in the comments. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit subscribe. And we will see you guys next time.